Welcome to Imagining Slocan's Waterfront Commons, one conversation at a time. I'm your host today. My name's Jessica Lunn, and I'm the current mayor of the Village of Slocan. In this podcast, we're diving into stories and strategies from communities that have boldly reimagined their shared spaces. And we're doing this as part of our lead up to the Slocan Waterfront Vision Symposium that's happening this May. So today I'm honored to speak with Clara Reinhardt, the former mayor of the Village of Radium Hot Springs. During her time in office, Clara led the creation of the Radium Hot Springs Centre, a multi-use facility that's become a hub for connection, creativity, and community. Her story offers a real-world example of what it takes to turn a vision into something tangible and lasting. As we prepare for our own conversations and co-design efforts here in Slocan, Clara's experience offers both inspiration and grounded wisdom. So welcome, Clara. Thank you so much for joining us today.
As I've told you before, it's my absolute pleasure, Jessica. It's so fun to see a community embarking on an adventure like this.
Yeah. So, Clara, could you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you and your journey as mayor of Radium?
Sure. So I've lived in the community here for only 20 years. We came when my husband retired, we built a home, and we decided that this was going to be our new life. When an opportunity came up for me to run for council, something that I had been interested in for years, I grabbed it, I campaigned, and I became a councillor in the Village of Radium Hot Springs. I did that for 2 terms when we were back on 3-year terms. And then we did a very programmed succession plan with the former mayor, Dee Conklin. And I was acclaimed and was mayor for 2 4-year terms. And then decided that, it was time to let someone else have some fun.
Excellent. So, in terms of the Radium Hot Springs Center, we know that it takes time to come up with a concept and to come up with a location, and there's a lot of a process from idea to actual built. Can you talk to us a little bit about the pre-build process for the Radium Hot Springs Center? Where did the idea for this project come from?
So Radium was a village of 600 people at the time, and over the years, the locals had built a hall and they had added on to it, and it was all done with volunteer labor. And as with many of these buildings, there comes a best before date, and it was no longer really meeting the needs. People didn't want to have weddings there. People didn't want to go in. There was often kind of an odor. We thought, oh well, we'll test for mold, we'll test for whatever, maybe that'll help us, move the project forward. And yeah, it was clean. And then the seniors, of course, had a really there was a lot of nostalgia. They had a real feel for it because they had all hammered, they had all cleaned it over the years, they had painted, they had shingled, like they had real ownership. So we really had to start planting the seed and talking about the future. And we started putting it in our 10-year plan. And then, there'd be small breakdowns. And then we would start talking about a feasibility study. And just, you had to keep watering and fertilizing the seed until we were ready to go. Because, of course, money was a problem too. We started putting together a little bit of a reserve fund. We started watching for grants. So it was all part of the process. And council wasn't totally on board. We had to work with council. And as new councillors came on board, there was a shift. It took time. That's what I'm going to say. We think it took. I became a councillor in 2008. So even if you say the beginning of 2009, we started talking about it, and we moved in August of 2018. So it didn't happen quickly.
Yeah, as is the case. There's lots to think about. So, were there partners? You meant was a municipally led project. Were there other partners in the community that participated?
So, yes, within the community, but the really big partner, I think that set us down a path where we had a bit of a clear vision, was Woodworks. And I don't know if you're in municipal government, you go to all these conferences and there's trade shows and they give out awards and prizes, but you don't really understand what their role is. And so when the representative at the time came and talked to staff and council and explained that there's not really any funding that comes with it, but if we were to do a resolution to say we wanted to go with wood first, where possible, where practical, that then they could support us in little ways, like putting contractors our way or guiding us with maybe which architects we should go looking to RFPs for, or it was that kind of support that we got. And I think, you talk about TSN turning points, and I think that was really the first one for us, deciding
Mhm.
to build with wood.
Yeah, excellent. And what a decision. It's such a beautiful building, and the wood elements are spectacular. Um, so, were there any key priorities or goals that you wanted to incorporate, either from the community or that came up as you were discussing the project with the different experts?
So the experts were really the community members. So when we
Mhm.
started doing our engagement process, um, we our neighbors to the south, Invermere, had just built the Columbia Valley Centre, and their goal was to be able to house 400 people because that was what they needed for a grad class. That was kind of what they used as their size. And they had a really key partner in the arts community. And so they also needed to make it so that there could be conversion to theater or for arts presentations. They had the library and they had the Summit Youth Group. So we watched that process and realized early that we're not that big. And so we limited to 200 seating capacity. And we also wanted everything to be practical and flexible. So we wanted to have flex space. We wanted a good kitchen. We also, to keep the price down, little things started coming up like, do we really need an elevator? Like, can we keep everything on one level? The sports groups were asking, are we going to have a sprung floor? Are we going to have basketball nets? And so a decision was made early, no. We wanted this to be more of a meeting place. And as soon as it starts being a gym, you can't have the windows. You can't have, it just changes everything. So that was a hard decision, no sports. Um, and with the windows, you're not going to have the same kind of arts performances because you need the blackout so you can do stage lighting and what have you. We knew we needed to have space for the library, and we knew we needed space for the seniors because they were quite active at the time and were carpet bowling. And so that was the one sport. I guess that's a sport. So we had to allow that in. And then we had to have storage for the carpets. Storage was kept to a minimum. We wanted to be as environmentally passive, environmentally efficient as we could be. Because of our area, we are in the hot springs area. Everyone just assumed it would be the most efficient way to heat and cool would be geothermal. Well, that got ruled out because of our climate and the way it worked. Believe it or not, was not going to be practical. So, there were those kinds of things that came through regularly. Um, and then I have to go back to the partners because I started out by saying that Urban Arts was an external partner. But what I really didn't talk about was Canfor and the local woodworkers. So one of the things, well, we'll get to that I'm going to keep you to your plan. But when we talk about the architects, there was something kind of innovative that happened then, and we'll come back to that.
Okay, excellent. Um, do, do, do. S- I I'm curious now, actually, about the build itself. I understood. like it took over 10 years. And can you tell us a little bit about the process with the build?
So once we made the decision to build with wood, then we had to find an architect because we had the vision now, but you had to find an architect. So when we put out the RFP, we got 6 or 7 packages from different architectural firms who were interested in doing it. And we vetted them and we interviewed 4. And on day one, we interviewed the principal from Urban Arts and one other one who was a well known firm, representative of a firm. And I can remember coming out of that and going and talking to the CAO. And I said, I got to do a perception check here. Like, was she really as wonderful? And was the presentation really as awesome as I think it was? And he just shook his head and he said, "You have no idea how amazing that was." Like, so it was
Mhm.
even hard to do the interviews the second day because they blew us away in what they were going to do and how they seemed to embrace our vision. So that was another TSN turning point, was hiring the urban arts. And then they did something that they had never done before, where they took everyone in the Kootenays who worked with wood or did any kind of wood building or wood structures and brought them in and said, "What have you got? What do you do? How would we use that?" And so as a result of that, a lot of the things that are going on in the building um, are there because we had local artisans and local trades who could do that. So if you look at the ceiling here, the beams across the top are called peg lam. So they're glued, but they also have pegs. There's no nails or screws. So that's done by someone up towards Golden. Then we did the panels in the ceiling are actually sections. The panels are made by 2x4, and they're put up, and then there's more insulation, and they did something. Again, this is not, I'm not the builder, but they made sure it met fire code. And what it does is it really dulled the sound. You know how you have to sometimes put panels
Mhm.
up. So we had wood panels in the ceiling. We had the wood beams, the support structures. They were a different type of laminate. And then we did wood floors in the main room, and we did recycled product in the library here, as you can see. Um, it just became this labor of love, and they used all of the options that were available to us, from Golden to, I think we went down as far as Castlegar. And then we got all our wood that we could use from Canfor, and the exterior, we wanted it to be maintenance free. So there's this process that apparently the Japanese have been using for centuries, and they actually burn the wood, which, most loggers don't want you to come in and burn their good wood. But what it does is it seals it and it stops termites from coming in and that kind of so they last forever. So
Mhm.
that's how we got the dark brown burnt wood on the outside. So just as these things evolved, positioning of the building, we had to walk around the whole park and look at how we could take advantage of the light and still avoid the heat of the day in the summer,
Mhm.
because we didn't want to have to overcool the building, so we needed to keep the heat out. And then we ended up that the placement where the old hall was the best. So that meant we had to knock that building down while we're building. So that's
Mhm.
the decision, right? And then when they started building, there were little changes that happened as we were working through, as it became apparent that we could get more efficiency by making some shifts. Um, we went through the bathrooms and we said, "Oh, there's not very many cubicles," because I don't know about you, but I hate standing in line at events and to go to the bathroom. So they came back and they said, "Well, we can put another cubicle in both the male and female if we do a tiptoe into gender neutral." So we have one entry that you go into both. There's sinks, you can see each other. It's still private, but we got more cubicles. Or
Mhm.
we came in one day into the kitchen and we thought we were going to have some kind of stone countertops, We came in and it was all stainless steel. Well, that was brilliant. But as they were going through it, these decisions kind of came up. It was fun.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
think it
excellent.
was fun.
Yeah, yeah, what a creative process for sure. And so it is to go from idea or concept or need to actual to vision to tangible built three-dimensional building. How exciting is that?
Yeah.
um, yeah, so you did do, and I have I huge thank yous to you, Clara. You did pre-record some walkthrough videos for us, and I'm wondering if we could maybe take a look at some of those, just so that the viewers can see a little bit of a walkthrough of the building.
Sure.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Clara Reinhardt. I had the privilege of being the mayor of Radium Hot Springs when we built the beautiful Radium Hot Springs Centre. I'm now going to take you on a tour. All right, we've just come in the front door, and on the right we have a multi-purpose room, which is not the highlight, but what you'll see is that every room was designed to go through to the park. The other thing we did was we decided to build with wood, so you're going to see a lot of wood in this building. So, one of the things I want to add to that clip is that the library had to be as practical as everything else. So, the stacks in the middle are on casters. And so, if we want to move into that space, we can open the barn doors, and the multipurpose room and the library become one room. And those stacks of books are around the corner, all pushed together to make room for whatever the activity is, or meeting, or event.
Mhm. I remember that from when Radium hosted the Association of Kootenay Boundary Local Government. It was a great reception area as well. So you could move from the main meeting space into, and it was a different ambience of the reception
Mhm.
and social center as well. So, yeah, lots of versatility there for sure. I think there's one more clip that we have. Was it freezing a little bit for you, Clara?
No.
No. Okay, just on my end.
This is the main hallway, which takes you down to the kitchen, the main hall, and the bathrooms. Note once again, the windows go through to the outdoors, and wood panels and beams along the wall and up in the ceiling. If I turn to my right, this is the stage area, and it goes through to the park, and it has removable doors so we can open it to the main hall or use as a separate space. And you'll note that there is a screen in this room as well. Now we're heading down the hallway. With the panels, you're starting to get teased by the windows out to the park. You'll notice a polished concrete floor. And here we are, turning into the main hall. Here's the other side of the stage. You'll notice that there's cabinets underneath for storage. Look at the park and all those windows. Wood benches, beautiful wood floor, and windows to the patio, out to the park. And we have Brent's Shack, which is used for outdoor events, and it has the gas cooking facility. Remember, I talked about the wood panels and beams? So the panels are right up to the ceiling, and there's extra insulation between, and that is fire smart.
Wow, what a beautiful space. And the community must love it. I know as a visitor, when Radium hosted that convention, as I mentioned, it was such a beautiful space to be in. Sometimes you're at an event where you're learning and it's inspiring. But to have those open windows and the beautiful light coming in and looking into the park, it's really, really such a beautiful, tremendous job that that you guys did with that. And you had mentioned as well, one of the considerations at the beginning was to scale. Like, so it's not a huge building, but it's definitely large enough to host major events and to bring folks to the community and host major events. But it's yeah, it's. Do you know the square footage of the building off the
No.
top of your head? No.
Nope, it's on the website. I encourage people to go look on the website, radiumhotsprings.ca.
Yeah, yeah, because it's not a huge footprint, but as I say, just the way it was built, the wood elements, the windows, the functionality of moving the space around it, you can tell it was just so well thought out and such a treat. What an end product! Yeah, it's amazing.
I was just thinking about the uh, how we wanted to go green, of course,
Mhm,
and we got level 2 chargers out front,
mhm.
and it was noted that if we had solar panels up on the roof, that would be enough to offset the chargers and a bit more. And so we went to the local provider of solar panels, and he gave us a conceptual drawing and he showed it, and we said, why are they standing up on the roof? Like, that's all we see is the solar panels. Well, they're beautiful. And we told him it was a deal breaker. If he couldn't make them fade and go into the roof so that we could still
Mhm.
see our beautiful building in the park behind, that we weren't going to do it. He
Right.
needed to come up with a solution. And of course he did. But he couldn't understand that we didn't want to see the solar panels. Well, no, we wanted to see the building in the park and the mountains.
Mhm.
Anyway, it was one of those moments, right, where you say, I don't think you're on the same page as us.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah. Any of those moments that happened, they all turned out for the best because the final product, as I say, is just so beautiful, and the location as well. As a visitor and a participant, in an event there. It was amazing that it's right on that park, and so on your breaks you can just do a walk, and so you've developed around the park space as well. So yeah, just tremendous work. Clara, is there anything else that we've missed that you'd like to share about the building, about the process, about the partners, about the outcome?
I think it was a community project, and having the community participate from the beginning. And when we were really ready and we had a budget and we had a concept that we all agreed on, of course, we had to go to referendum because we were going to have to borrow money, despite, certainly we got some grants, we got a private donor. Um, when we went to referendum, after all this time, you have to know that it was really important. It was important to the council, it was important to the community. And I had been acclaimed in my last two elections, and I worked harder on that than I worked on the elections because I was not going to have this go down. It was going to pass. And I phoned people and I talked to people, and I can remember knowing that one young man had just turned 18, and I phoned the house and I said to Dad, I'd like to talk to him. He goes, no, no, I've got this, Clara. We're good. Like, it was,
Yeah.
I talked to grandparents about what it meant for their kids. I talked to kids about what it meant for their future. I talked to parents about what it meant for their kids. Businesses, tourism businesses. And in fact, if you want to book the hall, you have to book over a year in advance. If you want, like, our Rotary Club does bingo, and we book well in advance for our Thursday nights in the winter. It's
Wow. Yeah.
it exceeded all expectations. It is being used a lot.
Yeah. Fantastic. Yeah. So it spurred to me. So you had a referendum to borrow. What was the total project cost?
The total on that was, I'm going, yeah, now you're asking me to
Oh,
remember. It was, I think our loan ended up being for 3 or 4 million. So we were in that 7 million range.
okay.
And that's all in. And the landscaping, like that's all in because we have trees and we have the outdoor performing area. We have all the sidewalks all around because it's accessible. So we had to have ramps and sidewalks all around. We have decks, 2 decks, 3 decks. Um, yeah, railings like that. That's all in.
Mhm. Excellent. And in terms of, so there was municipal contribution. You mentioned a private donor contribution, some grants, I would imagine as
Yeah.
well. Yeah. So once you had the vision, the plans, and the resources, I guess that's when it was a go. And
Mhm.
how long did the build actually take from shovels hitting the ground?
Um, just over a year.
Just over a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
trying to remember when the contractor started, and he was even amazing. When he did the demolition, he
Mhm.
did it thoughtfully and he separated all the bits so that there wasn't as much cost to landfill. Everybody was on board. But yeah, and that was a fun event because when we started the demolition, we had former counselors, we had people who had helped build, we had all the local dignitaries, and everybody got to go with a sledgehammer to start knocking it down. I
Yeah.
remember Mrs. Jackson, her husband kind of was the lead builder, and she was there with the sledgehammer, and she was so supportive. And at the time, she would have been well into her 80s, and
Yeah.
she was a counselor way back when, because we've only been incorporated since 1990. We have to remember that too. So,
Yeah.
so the building was there way more before incorporation.
Mhm.
Mhm.
A brand new little village that's
I
growing, fastest
know,
growing,
yeah, the population has grown. We should say it's because we have a beautiful hall, but I don't think that'll fly.
right? Well, huge congratulations to Radiant Hot Springs for the work, and to you for seeing it through. A little tidbit, it's and so, a truth is that all that pre-work takes the majority of the time. So by the time that shovel's hitting the ground, it's incredible the amount of thought and process that happens to see things through to fruition. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Anything else, Clara, to share?
I can't wait to come and see the fruits of your labors.
Excellent. We can't wait to see you here, or even before they're completed. Would love to
Give me
see
an
you.
invitation.
Yeah, amazing. Um, yeah, so thank you so much, Clara, for sharing your journey, and as I said again, amazing work by your community. And thank you to folks who are listening for tuning into this episode of Imagining Slocan's Waterfront Commons. I hope Clara's reflections on building the Radium Hot Springs Centre sparks ideas that we might create right here in Slocan. If today's conversation got you thinking, I invite you to join us for the Slocan Waterfront Symposium that's happening May 24th and 25th. It's a chance to dream together, to learn from one another, and to take bold steps forward towards our shared future. So until next time, my name is Jessica. This is Imagining Slocan's Waterfront Commons. Huge thank you again, Clara, for joining us on this episode and sharing your story. So very much appreciated.
You
Thank
are
you.
so welcome.
Bye bye.
Bye.